Welcome into a live edition of Clippers Talk. I'm Adam Osland. It's good to be with you guys. Just opening up the chat here. Live on YouTube at Clippers Talk is where you can find me. The good thing now about having this YouTube channel is I've always had the podcast for Clippers Talk, been doing it for about 7 years. But now if something breaks, if something spicy is out there, interesting, something I just want to get off my chest, even if it's late at night and I can't sleep after a Clippers game, I may just go live. I may just rip off a podcast quickly and get it out there. And the reason I'm doing this one today, well, it is centered around this article that just dropped. Picked up some traction. Clippers reporter for ESPN, Young Masuk, did a great piece regarding Coach Lue and his summer and how things went working with Team USA, as I'm trying to also navigate things here and make sure I have this up on the Twitter side so everybody knows where to find it, as we just went live a second ago. If you can hear me, get in the chat. I'm looking for a little bit of confirmation here to make sure everything is a go. Just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down here if you're a voyeur and watching this right now. And I know it is a new habit to get into now with these YouTube lives in here. But this is Clippers Talk. I'm Adam Osland, and I got to discuss the excitement going on right now because this article that Young Masuk did for what I typically would call the Evil Four letter, although I love He's one of my favorites. All right, we got confirmation here. Thank you. Ayumi, he says, "Hi, Adam, we can hear you. We're good to go." So I'll get into the meat and potatoes of this article now. The quote that stuck out to me, the highlight of this, and there's a lot of them. I'm going to underscore some of the bigger points here in the article, but I want you to read the entire thing because does such great work. I certainly just don't want to read the entire thing for you and do some AI, narration here that you could do on your phone. I want to give you this quote from Coach Lue. Last week he said this, I guess, to quote, "When you lose a guy of Paul George's stature, instantly people think, oh, they can't win or they're not going to be competitive. But that just challenges me even more. Okay, people are counting us out or people don't think we're going to be good. That right there just gives me an extra dose of motivation. I can't wait to prove everybody wrong." Ooh, that's got me fired up. Ready to run through a wall. And I think about Coach Lue and who he has been throughout his career, who he was as a player and who he's been as a head coach. He has had to deal with doubters and detractors. He was a role player that got into an NBA final specifically to guard Allen Iverson and get stepped over. We know the play. Back in 2001 for the Lakers. This is somebody that wasn't thought of as being even close to a star. He was a contributor. He always had to prove it. It continues as a head coach. He took over for David Blatt mid-season in 2016 for the Cleveland Cavaliers and got them to win a championship after everyone doubted them being down 3-1 to Golden State, the 73-win Golden State Warriors team. This is who he is. He's built like this, guys. I'm telling you, if there's somebody that would take it personally that Paul George left his team, it's Coach Lue. The Michael Jordan and I took that personally meme, who he played next to with the Wizards, that's Coach Lue. Do not think for a second it's lost on him that Paul George decided to leave him and his coaching staff also. Not just the players, not just the organization, Kawhi, everybody, Steve Ballmer. They took care of Paul George, and he decided to go to what he thinks is greener pastures with Joel Embiid. But he's leaving someone who coached him the last 4 seasons. He's leaving someone that had at times to adjust his game plan to how Paul George was feeling that night on whether or not he was going to be assertive and be a superstar or kind of fade into the background a little bit and just blend in and be a role player. Coach Lue was the one that had to set him straight multiple times. Paul George says he's not just the 1A or 1B to Kawhi. He was second fiddle. He was the second player. He was the number 2. Coach Lue had to correct that. No. You're a bad boy. You're a bad man. You're a bad mother effer. I believe that is what he told him. After last season, where Paul George also said he was going to try to be the glue guy and do the little things after they had lost 4 games in a row with them trying to make it work in the backcourt with James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Coach Lue did all he could. You want to be more on ball? Cool. I'll give you more on ball reps. Oh, now you want to be off ball. Don't like being picked up 94 feet by Drew Holiday. They would bend and adjust the game plan for Paul George plenty. And he left. And that's fine. $72 million more. I understand that part of it. The B team comment, we've talked about that ad nauseum. Wasn't great. Bad look. Sealed his fate with now likely being booed when he returns into a dome on November 6th. If you guys want to get in the chat here, please do. This is Clippers Talk. It's Clippers Talk Live. Just the second one I've done since putting up the YouTube channel about 3 weeks ago. We've been doing a ton of episodes as I just like to work and talk about this team. I am most interested in Clippers basketball more so than anything else really in my life right now. Even during the off season, I'm like this. I can't stop thinking about the Clippers. This is what I care about. So even when something as innocuous or is, I guess, secondary as an article like this, that doesn't seem to have anything too inflammatory or too juicy, maybe for some, but to me, this is big time. This is important. This gives a lot of insight into Coach Lue and who he is and how this season could go for the Clippers. And again, Young Masuk did it for Espen. He is the Clippers beat reporter for ESPN. Here's a few more as we kind of go through this. And I just wanted to start with that quote from Coach Lue saying, I can't wait to prove everybody wrong. Because I believe that is what fuels him. There is a fire burning in his belly. Former players are often like this. You know, eventually they can't stay on the floor. They still want to compete. They get into coaching. Coach Lue, he is somebody that is very passionate about the game. And you can see it on the sidelines. He gets after it. What happened in Golden State right before the All-Star break where he was kicked out of that game shouldn't have been. Mentioned the referee post-game. There's an interesting video out there about that. He has an edge to him. And it goes back to being doubted as a player, I think. Coach Lue is somebody that has had to deal with this for so long that I think it is his main motivation of just knowing they're trying to count us out again. They're trying to count me out again. And he stacks another chip on his shoulder. Shar Cilicio, hope I got that right. Probably didn't. Says, hoping we get to see DJJ, Derek Jones Jr., lock down PG again in the finals this year. Wouldn't mind seeing that. Wouldn't mind seeing that. A meetup against Philadelphia in the finals. Here's a few more excerpts here from this wonderful article by Ohm. A lot of it is centered around Coach Lue and Jeff Van Gundy also being on the Team USA staff. Not just getting ready, because Coach Lue was the defensive coordinator during the Olympics for Team USA, to get them prepared each and every night, as they did, going on to win gold, down 17 to Serbia. Coach Lue was out there making the adjustments, and they eventually clamped them down in the second half. Some of that was just really hot shooting from Serbia. It wasn't even so, a lot of attention going towards Jokic, letting guys get open. as Bogey had himself a game, I think with 5 3-pointers at least. But it was hot shooting that you really just couldn't slow down. There was good perimeter defense, and it didn't matter from Serbia. But Coach Lue and Jeff Van Gundy, yeah, they were talking behind the scenes about the Clippers, specifically over 4 dinners in France. They reviewed, quote, play sets, pick and roll coverages, transition defensive schemes. And Van Gundy was crunching the numbers and researching how to improve the team's rebounding. Been a bugaboo for the Clippers for some time. Team rebounding. We know Ivica Zubac is good in that area, but if he's not playing 30-plus minutes per game, which we do expect him to be at this season, hopefully needs to be, as a decision for Coach Lue, and also Ivica Zubac has to stay out of foul trouble, but they had to do it by committee with Kawhi Leonard playing power forward still. Looks to be this season as well. They just don't have the size to compete on the boards with the best teams in that area. Excited to see that from Van Gundy, kind of honing in on some of those deficiencies and some of the details that the Clippers just have to pay attention to next season when it comes to rebounding and getting better defensively overall, because I forget if they finished 17th or 16th defensively this season. That number is inflated. As much as you would say, oh, that's still bad, it was worse defensively for the Clippers. And I'll get you the exact defensive rating for them. They ended up finishing 17th. Well, let me tell you this. I've been pointing out this number for some time because it's so damning and alarming and shocking and surprising, and will leave your mouth agape when you hear this. If you go based off of just the last 71 games in the regular season, the Clippers were 21st defensively last year. 21st, 21, a Deion Sanders number. I don't know how that could happen when you come into training camp saying you want to be a top 5 defense. That is extremely disappointing. You take out the first 2.5 weeks of the season, and you're 21st, a bottom 10 defense the rest of the way. That can't happen. Old Dirty Dasher wants to know, can we get some clues on Friday's guest? Okay, I have to come forward with this and clear this up. I jinxed it, I guess. We're moving Friday's special super secret guest back to next week. He will be on. I just gave a hint there. But I can't go any further with it because I don't want to jinx it again. I shouldn't have talked about it at all. I shouldn't have even brought this up. Why? I'm Old Dirty Dasher. Come on, why would you make me answer that? No, programming, no. We still have coming up later tonight, Chuck Mockler and Will Updike will be on. We'll do some clips and dip here on Clippers Talk. I'll talk origin stories of how they became a fan of the Clippers, myself included. It's not just because I work for them now. There's a deeper story to that. And then tomorrow, Justin Wilson will be on the show. But this is a live here on Clippers Talk because of this article. Evil Four Letter put it out. Ohm had it. Coach Lue, extra motivated. If he wasn't already, this is somebody that just thrives when you doubt him. This is somebody that got a winning season out of the Clippers in the 21-22 season without Kawhi Leonard the entire year, and with Paul George only playing 31 games. It's not like Coach Lue hasn't already been through something like he's going to face next season. With Kawhi being limited, we expect there's multiple back-to-backs right at the start of the season. I don't know how they're going to treat him. I don't know how they're going to do it after 4 straight years with him not being able to finish the season healthy because of his right knee. I would imagine he's not playing back-to-backs, and as Coach Lue alluded to at the end of last season after losing that Game 6 to Dallas, he jokingly said, we're going back to load management. May have been tongue-in-cheek. May be the reality of the situation too. And so you go back to that 21-22 season where they still had a winning record, 12 straight years having a winning record, longest streak currently in the NBA in that respect. He had to do it with 31 games from Paul George and 0 from Kawhi out the entire year coming off the ACL tear. He's seen worse situations. I think this team is better. I think this team has more talent. And of course, if you swap out Paul George only playing 31 games. For whatever you get from Kawhi Leonard this year, we're expecting more than 31. I'm hoping it's 60 plus. They're not in a bad spot. Not as bad as it looks. El Gooney said this: we still have Harden and Kawhi. They didn't have Harden that year. And we got younger, more athletic, and a defensive-minded squad. Add the squad. The quote from Van Gundy about getting better at rebounding, exactly what we need. How do you improve in all these other areas? You lose Paul George. You lose a lot offensively, a guy who averaged 23 per game last season with a high level of efficiency, one of the most, if not the most efficient season of his career. How do you replace that guy? Get more possessions through offensive rebounds and keeping the opposition off the glass on the other end. And then also clamping down and getting back to a Clamp City mindset after what happened last season and really the season before too, where they were 16th overall defensively. Guys, they haven't been good defensively since that 21-22 season without Kawhi, with Paul George playing 31 games, where they were 8th defensively. How do they do that season? The whole was greater than the sum of its parts, and they really zoned in and keyed in and had a defensive mindset from the outset and knew they had to be good on that end because the offense wasn't going to be as good without as much firepower, without the star power. Without the star power of Paul George, they should be in that same spot. They have to be a top 10 defense. They have to be a top 8 defense, I'm going to say. If they want a chance of staying out of the play-in, gain the 6th spot, maybe the 5 spot, if you're really optimistic, they have to be at least a top 8 defense. And yes, they do have the guys to do it, the personnel, the roster construction. I said it right after they brought in DJJ. Oh, we're losing Paul George. Here's Derrick Jones Jr. That was Lawrence Frank in the front office tipping their hand and saying, this is how we're building this team. This is how we're going to do it. It's a defensive identity now. A defensive makeup, defensive DNA. You bring back Batum. You bring in Chris Dunn. They have the guys. I want to see in that starting lineup still Terrence Mann in there because there were 30 games over 500. Basically going back to January of 2023 when he had that brief 14-game stint before they brought in Russell Westbrook of being in the starting lineup. And with Terrence Mann in there, they went 10-4. From that point, throughout this next year, they were, I think, 58-28 with Terrence Mann in the starting lineup. Keep him in there next to James Harden in the backcourt, DJJ at the 3, Kawhi Leonard at the 4, Ivica Zubac at the 5. That's the defensive-oriented starting 5 right there. You can insulate and make up for the deficiencies of James Harden by having Terrence Mann next to him, by having those other guys. They can do it. Here's some more positive news from that article. Mark Few, another head coach, next to Eric Spoelstra, next to Coach Lue, next to Steve Kerr with Team USA, said they were obviously so dialed into helping us, talking about Ty Lue and Jeff Van Gundy with Team USA basketball. But then they'd be meeting on the side, eating or riding together somewhere. Sometimes I would sit in and listen to them talk Clippers. Talk Clippers basketball. They're both just basketball grinders. Big time. Spoelstra said this about Coach Lue. He's like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind, comparing him to the Academy Award-winning, Oscar-winning performance from Russell Crowe in that movie. He's got papers, diagrams, notes all over the place. In fact, after Paul George was out, apparently Coach Lue was scribbling sets and diagrams on anything he could, notepads, napkins, and he's got 300 plays stored in his iPhone photo album, album. I'm an Android guy, and notes, knowing how the Clippers will play differently now than they did with Paul George. 300 plays already. Seems good. Seems very encouraging. Coach Lue said this: my mind's always going. When you lose an important piece like Paul, you got to do it by committee. He's a very huge defensive player for us, or he was. handling the ball, scoring the basketball, making plays. So losing him is going to be tough. They know the task at hand. They're aware. It's not easy to replace a guy like that. You got to do it collectively. But he's been good at doing more with less, getting the most out of guys, overperforming and outperforming expectations when they have had teams that are limited talent-wise, or when their backs are against the wall. The 21-22 season. It's not like that's an isolated thing where that was the only time Coach Lue didn't have his stars. Yes, it was extreme that year, but we're talking about overall during their Clippers tenure, 2-1-3 era. Kawhi and Paul George missed, I think, over 300 games combined. Nate G said if they didn't trade for Harden, they would have been better defensively. Losing Rocco, Batum, and KJ is a big deal. KJ Martin, who hasn't really proven anything yet, not a huge deal. Written for the guy, but Rocco, who wasn't playing that much, no. Batum, sure. There's a trade-off. They also went to an elite offensive place like we've never seen with the Clippers winning on a 26-5 run because they traded for Harden. I think it was the right move, especially now that you get Batum back anyways. Old Dirty Dasher says, can you ask your guests about their Clippers origin story if they have one? I know some media can't or won't, but other might. Well, Chuck Mockler and Will Updike tonight. We will talk about Clippers origin stories, how you became fans. Coach Lue said this, speaking of James Harden, it will make, quote, a huge difference having him the entire training camp. It will. You have to consider that. There were growing pains. There was a learning curve. It took a little bit of time before they eventually hit the ground running, and their offense was a well-oiled machine with him. He said, quote, having to learn how to best use him on the fly was tough. What he's shown us is that we can run a pick and roll, scoring the basketball, making plays for each other, making it easy for everybody to play. Harden's so critical for this season with elevating guys around him. That is one of the keys to getting more out of contributors and role players like Terrence Mann and Ivica Zubac have to be huge. Big Zoo, I think, is the third most important player on this team behind Kawhi and James Harden now. And James Harden, I think, will be able to get the most out of him. Speaking of Kawhi Leonard, Coach Lue said this, quote, I speak to him all the time. He'll be ready for training camp. He's feeling good, and I know he'll be ready for training camp. That might be the most important quote in this article, or at least right up there with Coach Lue saying, I can't wait to prove everybody wrong. We haven't heard much outside of, we had the report from Kelly Johnson, brought her on, talking about Mo Bamba at opening night for Intuit Dome, saying he had gone to San Diego to work out with Kawhi Leonard. So it sounds like he's ready to go, guys. All this talk of proving people wrong and being extra motivated, none of it matters if Kawhi isn't healthy. He has to be. I've had my concerns. I'm sure you've had yours. How can you not? 4 straight years of Kawhi Leonard either not able to start a playoff run or finish one. And it's the same right knee going back to the ACL, the meniscus, and then the swelling this past year. I don't think you can play him back-to-backs. Therefore, that 16 games already missed right off the top. But if he can get 60-plus in, you're in business still to get out of the play-in, I think. You have an opportunity. You have a chance. It's not going to be easy. Losing Paul George is a lot to overcome. But I think they have the personnel and the right mindset, knowing that you have to lean to defense more, knowing that you have to be much better defensively overall. If you're a top 8 defense while still being a top 14 offense, that's that sweet spot where your net rating is still around top 10 in the NBA. And therefore, you have a chance to be a top 6 seed. More on Jeff Van Gundy. Coach Lue wanted him in Cleveland. Remember, he hasn't coached at the NBA level. He's been with Team USA for a while in different roles, but he hasn't coached in 17 years. Coach Lue played under him in Houston, played for his brother in Orlando with Stan Van Gundy. And Jeff Van Gundy said this about being back in coaching. Quote, I'm a little nervous and on edge because I want to do my part and blend in with the other coaches and help Ty because I'm really grateful for the opportunity. Coach Lue said this about him. He's a basketball film rat. He's calling me, asking me questions. Offensively, defensively, all the different things about game 17 of last season. As Van Gundy has been watching every single Clippers game from this past year and trying to find ways to optimize the squad. Coach Lue said he's locked into all that. Quote, that's what we need of Van Gundy when it comes to figuring out life without Paul George. Quote, losing PG, starting over with a younger team and doing things the right way, it's going to take both of us to really get our guys on track. The addition of Jeff is going to be huge for us. Quote, the pieces that we added this year, we got to play a different style, but we're going to play winning basketball, and I know we're going to have a chance to be pretty good. It's going to be my job to make sure we get to that point, whatever I have to do. What do I have to do right now? Get on a call with Fred Rogan. Producing Rogan and Rodney today. We're going to have our little pregame chat here. So I have to leave you, but I'll leave you with this. This article got me even more pumped up. It's not that I didn't think the Clippers would be extremely motivated for life without Paul George and trying to prove people wrong, but from the horse's mouth, these quotes coming from Coach Lue, the way they're going about it, they're saying all the right things. I think they're going to be doing all the right things, as we outlined here from this article from Ohm, from ESPN. Read the entire thing. I think you'll be very encouraged. I think you'll be more hopeful and optimistic coming into this season and how the Clippers are going to attack this year without Paul George for the first time in 5 years. It's a new era, but I think they're doing this the right way. Still need some luck. Good health from Kawhi Leonard, of course, but they do have a team that's going to be very competitive. Coming up later tonight, a new Clippers talk. It will not be live, but we will have Chuck Mockler and William Updike on. We'll talk origin stories. We'll talk about how we became Clippers fans, all that. I'm Adam Osland. This has been another edition of Clippers Talk, a live one. Love you all. Thanks for joining the stream. And this will be in podcast form, and I'll put it at Follow Adam A on Twitter.